Good evening and welcome to day 3 of the workshop, Facing Your Fears and Claiming Your Voice. Tonight we are going to be talking about the 3 B's, and that is breath work, balance, and bandwidth. So tonight is going to be an interactive activity. We'll have different writing prompts. But first, before we deep dive into that beautiful and very relaxing conversation of the breath work, bandwidth, and balance, we're going to review the last couple days quickly through a slide. For your patience, thank you, as we see if technology will serve us for the evening.
It worked.
Fantastic. Dun, 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 dun. I love it. So here we are for Face Your Fears and Claim Your Voice. For day 1, I should prompt people and be like, are you arachnophobic or fear of snakes? So many people have fears about snakes or spiders. And what is interesting about this is what we assign value to in societies. So throughout history, the snake and spider have had very strong associations to them. And while we might be looking at the spider, the black widow there, which is deadly, spiders are also known to be the weavers of time. And while time can sometimes be overwhelming, it is still an amazing thing to think of how much has been weaved over the course of history and all the emotions and fears and hopes and dreams that have been woven through billions of people on the planet. And then we have the snake, of course. And it also carries a great deal of wisdom and also warning. So sometimes when we find our fears, it's interesting for us to look at the spiritual meanings behind specific images that continually pop up in our lives, to dive a little bit deeper into what they might be telling us. And then we have one of my favorite phrases to help me remind how to stay in a healthy place when it comes to fear is the acronym of FEAR. False evidence appearing real. So oftentimes we create stories about the things that we are afraid of. They're not necessarily true. Sometimes there's a thread of truth from our history or a reminder of something in society that tells us that we're supposed to be afraid of something. And this is where we find our evidence. It's like cherry picking what works for us to reinforce the false narrative that we have spinning through our heads of why we should be afraid of any given thing. And as many of us know, when we think about something often, we start to manifest it in our reality, which is why the false evidence becomes to appear real. Like when you think about every time you think about a yellow car, and then all of a sudden you see yellow cars everywhere. It's not because there are suddenly more yellow cars, because your attention has been pulled to something new. How do we face our fear? We start small. Using the proper gradient to help us get out of these spaces of fear is incredibly helpful. So one of the things that we do is we are able to get out of our heads and into our bodies. And that is the first step of starting small, is to be able to look at our entire being and have our mind listen to our body. And then listening to our intuition, which encompasses us all. Once we figure out how to listen more deeply to our intuition, it makes us easier for us to make the small steps towards conquering our fears. Maybe your small step is walking down the stairs a little bit if you've fallen down the last couple of your trips. Or maybe it's you really are very OCD about having all of the pens straight because something might get out of control if you don't keep them straight. Right? And maybe you're just gonna I'm going to leave that one pen crooked and see if my life in fact falls to chaos because I left it there. But honestly, though, we all have our own little quirks of how we operate in life and create coping mechanisms for ourselves to try and regain control. Yesterday, we talked about emotion and in how life we experience an array of emotion and how we assign judgment to emotions, how we decide that any particular emotion is either negative or positive. But what if we took away the concept of positive and negative association to any emotion and rather simply existed in the space of that emotion in neutrality, to be able to take a step back and feel it in your body without judgment, to be able to look at what the emotion and the action, the thoughts created within your life of struggle. And if you can take a step even farther to the eagle-eyed view, to see what gifts those particular emotions were giving you, what different doors they opened once you were able to really drop into your being and see what they were showing you. Showing areas that had some pain or weakness or something that fueled your heart as it expanded to encompass a new child or a loved one. And you grew in ways that you didn't even think possible before experiencing that moment. That brings us to today with the 3 B's of bandwidth, breathwork, and balance. When you look at these images, what comes to mind? Simran.
I mean, balance out of the 3 Bs.
And when you look at the first image, does it create fear or something else? Wonder.
Yeah, wonder, awe, and a little bit of fear. Sure.
Fear.
Looks
Hi,
scary.
Tanya. Tanya, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We just finished up the different slides and now we've landed on today for the 3 B's of bandwidth, breathwork, and balance. Oh, we have a little chat. Hello. So yeah, awe, right? I mean, the colors. I wonder sometimes, like, what's the story? Is there a rope that I can't see? Is there a giant river underneath that if he falls into, he will survive instead of being crushed on rocks? How thick is the board really? I mean, it looks pretty skinny. Maybe it's just the angle and it's actually a couple feet wide. But still, what if the breeze comes? Or something stronger, like fear? But maybe when this person started their journey of thinking that it was somehow a good idea to walk across a beam between 2 rocks, they started with a rope tied between 2 trees, only a few inches above the ground. Till they learned to find the space within themselves to balance. And they had the support system and using the proper gradient to raise the rope a bit higher and higher. And maybe when they first walked across the rope the first time, they had friends on either side, hands just inches below where their arms would be outstretched, until it became 1 friend instead of 2. And then farther away with just encouraging words. And then higher upon the trees, the rope climbed, instead of inches, then feet, a yard, and then a more dangerous option, perhaps, of a board higher and a deeper drop, until they walked across, after checking the weather, of course, the vast array of space on this tiny board. But no one knows the story of the journey that led them there to create the balance, the gradient of which allowed them to succeed. Do either of you have anything in your life now or in the past that reminds you of a point that when you first tried something, you thought it would be impossible, and then you succeeded?
I absolutely have many things that I thought would never happen until I did them. And I've accomplished so much more later in life than I ever did when I was younger.
Would you like to share something more specific, Tanya? I'd love to hear about your victories.
A happier one would be going back to school at such a later age and getting a degree.
That's fantastic. What were the different points that you went from feeling like this is impossible to like, wow, I'm actually doing this?
I think when I first started it, I was like, I'm just a lonely housewife. I have nothing better to do. I'm just going to do this. And I was actually in the process of separating from my husband at the time and going through a divorce in the first year of school. And I thought, what am I thinking? What am I doing? And it just, for some reason, I just continued to be focused. Divorced in 2015. I started school in like late 2014, and I finished my degree last year. So I made it through it, and I'm very proud of myself.
Well done, Tanya. That's fantastic. And I really appreciate you sharing that. Simran.
The one that comes to mind is my board exam.
Mm.
Yeah, because I had to take it more than once. I failed the first time. So yeah, I was like, I don't know if I can actually do this. Like maybe I'm not as smart as I thought I was. You know?
It could have possibly just been nerves because board exams are terrifying.
Yeah.
And not everybody's great at taking tests.
Terrifying. And well, but that's not me though. I am good at taking tests and I still failed it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah. So that's the big thing that comes to mind where I really like worked my ass off the second time around. And you know, my mom like babysat my kid for like 10 and 12 hours a day, you know, while I
Wow.
was studying for weeks and weeks. And yeah, but I did it. And I did well. I did really well actually.
Well done.
So yeah. That's the first thing that I can think of. I also haven't thought about my life through that lens very much.
Mm.
You know, I just sort of did the next thing that I was supposed to do. And then, you know, I mean, for medical school to become a doctor, there's a very clear path. Like you know exactly what the next step is going to be. You just have to get through, you know, the checkpoints at each step or whatever. So that never felt like unsurmountable to me. It never felt like it's not going to happen. But once I like started practicing and like was a real full-fledged doctor, I was kind of like, well, now what the hell do I do? You know?
Yeah.
And I'm still sort of wondering that, to be honest, because I spent so much of my formative years like studying, you know, basically in school. And now I don't know what to do with myself. Like I can't just sit and hang out with myself. So yeah, I don't know. I haven't thought about things through that lens very often, but each step of that journey was like that. It's like climbing higher and higher. And now, yeah, I can walk across, 2 mountains on a board. Um, but just reframing that is actually really empowering, thinking about it that way.
I'm so glad. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. I really appreciate that.
Mm.
So I'd like you ladies for a moment, because I feel that oftentimes as women, we do that. We just keep going, especially as business owners, moms, like wives, like this is like always doing something for somebody else. And we don't really celebrate our victories from small to large, especially for like highly intelligent women. I think this happens even more so because we're just like, well, of course we're supposed to do that. That's just like yeah, like why? You're like, oh yeah, no, I did this thing and it was great and and you just like move on, like talking about your day. It's just like, yeah, so I made a sandwich today, and like,
Yeah.
you're like, yeah, so I got my doctorate, and you're like, yeah, and then I made this great sandwich for my kids, and like I ran them to the bus, and it's like the same tone for the whole thing. So I want you to take this moment and just write down a few of the things that you have been victorious in. They can be large, they can be small. I want you to just take this time and honor yourself. I'll do it too.
I'm doing the assignment, but I have to go to the bathroom, so I'll be right back.
It's good. It's important to honor your needs. Tanya, are you in a space where you're able to write?
I'm sorry, I'm doing chores. What was the question?
I was asking you if you were in a space to write.
No. I'm trying to multitask. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So while you're multitasking, if you're not in a space to write, if you would just take this time to think about your victories.
Absolutely.
Okay, just like honor yourself and all the beautiful things that you've accomplished.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Damn, when I start writing, there's actually a lot of good stuff I've done. Pat myself on the back a little bit. Way to go, me.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's what I love to hear. And this becomes a really excellent process to get to do at the end of every day. And it can just be like the small things, or maybe something great happened, or maybe you were reminded of something that you had forgotten about from long ago. This can be an exceptionally powerful process, especially when you pair it with writing your gratitudes in the morning, even if it's just for 5 minutes. Just like set your alarm, wake up 15 minutes early and start your day and write, I am grateful for da 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 da. I am grateful for da 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 da. Before you turn on your phone, computer, TV, anything. You can put it by like on your nightstand if you need to, so you're quiet so the kids don't wake up. And you just sit there and stream of consciousness from small to large. It can be something as simple, like if you've had a rough day, it can be something as simple as I am grateful to have a roof over my head. I am grateful for warmth. I am grateful for community. I am grateful for the love of my children. I'm grateful for my animals. You know, sometimes I write, I am grateful to be able to move all of my limbs. And I am grateful to walk because there was a time when I couldn't. And so it's important to remember these simple things that we oftentimes take for granted. And you start there, and then you can expand to you have the inner world, and then you have the immediate outer world, how we move through space and time and community. And as you build that, it's just a beautiful way to start your day. And it's amazing how much it increases your bandwidth. Because what's happening is that instead of taking in information from your phone or your computer, right, and you're reacting to something immediately, you're going outwards and you're creating. So it's an entirely different space of which to create your day. And it sets you into a higher vibration, a higher tone. And then when you go through the world and people can be irritating, because we're human, it's easier for us to act with grace and humility and see them as human beings. And that there might be something on their side of the world that is making it difficult for them to engage kindly with the outside world. And you can just say, I don't condone the behavior that you're having right now, but I'm choosing to not let it affect me. Because I know at the end of the day, I'm a good person and I'm doing the best that I can. And your outrage is not about me. Especially if it's something like somebody says something to you that's not ideal. You say, for instance, oh, I'm really sorry to feel that way. Can you tell me more? And then you can say, I'm sorry if something I said created that reaction in you. And that way you're not making yourself wrong, but you're identifying that something that came up and having empathy for another human being that like, wow, like nobody really wants somebody else to feel poorly unless you're wrong targeting or like lashing out, right? Because you're hurt. That's when those sorts of things happen. So bandwidth, oftentimes, like I think of bandwidth, lots of people use the cup analogy, right? For like a cup that's half full. I'm going to look at that cup half full and it's going to be positive. But I was thinking about this concept of bandwidth and how we oftentimes stack chores, ha ha ha, Tanya, in different activities on top of our day-to-day events or our experiences people, right? And every time we take it, something takes more energy, physically, mentally, emotionally, then Tanya, guilty. That it's like pouring water into the glass, right? And there's only so much space in the glass before the glass overflows and creates a mess. And then we have to clean up the mess. But if we have healthy boundaries, then we're able to say, hey, I'm getting kind of full. I don't want to make a mess. I have to have this boundary so that I don't get pushed over the edge, right? Which brings us to an exercise that is one of my favorites that has to do with water and with increasing your bandwidth and recognizing where you are within your body energetically and feeling sometimes overwhelmed. So this is going to require you to stand up, but first I'm going to show you what it looks like from the seated position, because my entire body does not fit into the frame when I do this exercise in this particular location in my house. So what you will be doing is that you bring your arms up over your head, and and it'll be like a T basically. Okay, fingertips to fingertips. Right. Okay, so now I want you to stand up. I'm going to trust that you're doing the exercise. And so you stand up and you put the arms up over your head, fingertips touching. Try to relax your glutes if they're tightening. And I want you to think about how water feels when you put your hands over the top of it, just barely skimming the water and that buoyant sort of feeling. Okay, it's like a bubble that you're barely touching the top on. And I want you to take nice deep breaths in and out. And I want you to imagine that the water is slowly draining through your body, out your feet. And you are going to find natural points where it holds. And oftentimes, if you're feeling really overwhelmed, it might be above your head and stay there for a while. And when that happens, at each point, you just focus on breathing nice and deep and imagining the water seeping down in that container. And you'll feel your hands slowly drop in front of your face. And you might hit points where it's like really fast and it drains until you hit another level. And it naturally comes down and hits about your waist, and then you can just drop your arms when you get to that point. Perfect. Beautifully done, ladies. And then you can sit back down when you're ready. And this is an excellent exercise that you can even teach your children. Because sometimes when you're feeling overwhelmed, or somebody else is just like, you seem really over the top right now. And you can just take a moment. And even if you're just in your car and you can't get away from anybody else other than there, you can do it seated. And it just really helps you to relax. Do you feel more relaxed?
I don't know. I feel like my body is really out of shape.
That's fair.
Even just holding my hands above my head, it was like straining my, what's it called? Back muscles.
Yeah.
My
No,
latissimus.
I understand that. Did you feel the buoyancy in like the stuck spots as you came down?
Yeah, in my hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that fascinating how we can feel energetically where it's stuck?
Yeah, I felt it around my chest.
Interesting.
Like my arms didn't want to move.
Yeah. And that's like your heart center. That makes sense why it'd be stuck, right?
Mm. Weird.
Yeah. It's like magic. But if you do that regularly and you teach your body more and more, like you get more keyed into your energy and your intuition and your body senses, it'll get easier and you'll be able to go through it more so. Tanya, what do you mean your arms didn't want to cooperate? Tell me more about that.
I think it was more just physical with me. I wasn't focused enough to engage emotionally in that exercise. I mean, I'm pretty certain that's what it was about, because I know when I can engage emotionally, then that exercise is perfect, because I do exercises like that all the time. But right now I'm in the physical mode and I'm just not connecting. So I need to stop multitasking and just focus on the present.
Just be. Thank you. I understand that that can be really tough sometimes, like especially if you're on deadlines for things and you just don't feel like you have enough time to get things done in your life. So I get it. So if you want to stop, if you want to try again, we can hold the space, or if you want to try it another time, you can. So you tell me what you would like.
I really appreciate that. We can move on. I'll try it later on after I wind down because I'm still in physical work mode and I'm just now starting to wind down. So I don't want to keep the meeting waiting. So please go ahead.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you letting me know. And in that vein, to help facilitate that, we can work on breath work here very shortly. So, but with bandwidth, before we switch over to breath work, I'd like you ladies to, Tanya, if you don't have anything to write with, I want you to just think about it. And Simran, I want you to write down things that eat up your bandwidth. You know, the things that build over the course of a day, and then you get to the end of the day and you're just like, I got nothing left. So that's one list. Good. And then on the second list, I want you to write down things that increase your bandwidth. So examples of things that would increase your bandwidth would be the exercise that we just did, the journaling of the things of like celebrating your victories, gratitude, Epsom salt baths, screaming in your car to release energy. Don't let the things that seem like they're quote unquote negative by other people's standards get in the way of you honoring what works for you. And while you write each list, I want you to pay attention to what happens in your body while you're thinking of them. As long as it's not too much to do both, because your bandwidth might not facilitate that part. And there's no shame in either. All right. Simran, would you like to share some?
Yeah. Things that kind of deplete my bandwidths. Well, I listed a few, but one that kind of I felt in my body was just, I just wrote conflict. That's like
Yeah.
things that came to mind, or like having to reprimand or having to tell somebody at work that they're not doing something right, or getting that feedback at work. When I was still with my husband, fighting with him.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was just like, ugh, I could feel it in my head. And then I thought about like therapy. And I don't do that anymore, actually, with like a professional therapist, but like my sister, I call her my free therapist because I talk to her a lot about stuff. And even with you sometimes, and
Yeah.
it just like, it's important to do that, but I just am like wiped out afterwards.
Yeah, I do.
Um,
It's a different type of conflict.
yeah, basically it is, isn't it? What increases my bandwidth? It's I wrote peace, calm, happiness, and then I was like, well, okay, what makes you feel that way? My kids, like when they're happy, when we're playing, when they're learning something,
Hmm.
just all the time I'm with them when they're not having tantrums and make breakdowns. Increases my bandwidth for sure. Making people laugh and positive social interaction. Like I
Hmm.
definitely am, somebody who gets energy from other people.
No,
For
that's
sure.
really
Social
cool.
interaction. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing all of that. And I love how you caught yourself about generalizing and you dug deeper and you were like, what are the actions that I partake in that make me feel those things?
Mm.
It's a great introspective moment. Tanya, would you like to share any of yours?
Absolutely. That was great. Conflict is definitely was more mine years ago in my marriage. I hated confrontation. It just made me sick to even think about having confrontation with my husband or anyone for that matter, because I lacked confidence and I just didn't want to address anything or make anyone upset. But the one now, I think more than ever, is time, like not feeling like I have enough time to get everything done, feeling rushed, feeling, oh my gosh, I got to do this so I won't be making anyone else feel uncomfortable. Like I got to get there on time. I got to have this done on time. I got to make sure everything, and that just overwhelms me to no end. And the things that I do to help with that would be just taking a deep breath and just noticing that I'm having that reaction and telling myself it's not the end of the world if you have to tell them you're going to be a little bit longer, or these things are not the end of the world. Tanya, come on, snap out of it. And that's really hard for me because I want to do what I say I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And getting me back into that happy mode if I'm feeling stressed or overwhelmed about it, just like after work or whatever, I'll turn up some Taylor Swift and I will jam out. And then I come home to my silly 11-year-old son, and it just makes everything better. And being outside in nature, it just gives me a feeling of, everything's going to be fine. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
Music. I forgot about that. Me too. Yeah. Music.
No, that's beautiful. I really appreciate all of your shares and your vulnerability. It was interesting. I was thinking about it for myself, and the things that eat my bandwidth up are like talking to my dad about politics, like way before the pandemic ever started. Like it's just like our thing that I really struggle. I try not to talk to him about it all, but it's a great representation. It boils down really to conflict, right? And it just talks about just say no to politics. Yeah, that's basically just like being raised in the two households that I was. I'm basically just like, no, I have a super like hard policy. Like my boundaries are so strong when it comes to politics. I'm just like, nope, call somebody else. Ain't none of that happening over here. And yeah, it's just like it's this really funny thing. And just but it like makes my heart feel extra. And that's like family, right? And like I have conflict, just like wanting to have a deeper relationship with certain people in my family that I just don't get to. And in my one of the things, my values is super strong is being in alignment with your values. And something that's been really difficult for me in my personal growth has been standing in that truth and be like, if my family members' value system and alignment for them is not in alignment with me, then and that's my value system, then I have to honor where they're at, even if it is really hard on my heart that it doesn't work for us to be deeper friends. And that's why it's so important for us to do this interpersonal work and be really honest with ourselves and discover what our value system is and why. And to stand in that truth, not just for ourselves, but the other human beings and animals for that matter that we interact with. To let go of that ego, to let go of those expectations of how we wish the world would interact or accept us. And truly love ourselves and value ourselves and see what we bring to the world beautifully. And that we don't have to be perfect. But it is important to strive in integrity. Yeah. That's Simran, does that resonate? Oh, I think her kiddos came down.
Oh, they're shouting at me from upstairs.
Oh, little.
That really does resonate. I mean, I think I've been thinking about this stuff more deeply than I ever did before in the last probably like 2 years of my life. When I started thinking about leaving my husband, really is when I was like, but who am I? What am I doing? What am I bringing to this relationship? So, and I keep coming back to the same thing is what you just said. Like, I just building that relationship with myself is the key to all of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I have made progress in 2 years. Again, it feels like sometimes though that like, oh, just that much progress. It's like, it's been 2 years, Simran. Like, that's all you've accomplished. That like that thought definitely, there's like a river flowing through my head, like continuously. But
Takes work to get rid of it. It's a long time sometimes. Every once in a while, you
Yeah.
can snap your fingers because you've like built and you're like ready for that release point. And so it's in that moment, it feels like you get to snap your fingers and let go of something.
But it's been building up the work.
Yeah, like it happened to me on my 40th birthday that I got to snap my fingers and decide that I was going to let go of my limiting beliefs and step into my power. That was just a decision that I made when I turned 40. But I had done all that work that it was just like I was in a space that was like, yeah, heck yeah, that's what I'm going to do and give myself that gift for my 40th birthday. But also within that, having the grace to recognize that it is not a smooth path. To be able to let go of those beliefs. Part of that is that like, yeah, there's moments when they come forward, but those moments when they come forward are short and like, what's your bounce back? Right? Because they don't stay. And it's like, do you shame yourself for letting those moments come at all? Or do you allow yourself to understand, be like, yeah, like it's just another wave. Like I'm experiencing a new stage. I'm constantly evolving. And so like old stuff sometimes comes up and it talks to you. And then you're just like, I see you, I hear you, and you get to move on.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm close to 42. Like it's been a long time that my brain has been functioning this way. So
Yeah.
like, yeah, you don't fix that in 2 years. So
Built it up over your whole life in a series of life experiences. Like it takes time to build it up. It takes time to like take it back down and then rebuild something new.
Are you okay? I'm sorry. I think I have to go. I heard a loud bang upstairs.
Yeah, I think, yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
okay.
I'll see
Yeah,
you tomorrow.
we'll talk to you tomorrow. We'll do the breathing another time. Oh, goodness gracious, her littles. Whew. Tanya, it's just you and I. We can, I was like, whoo, I heard that loud bang too. Did you have any thoughts before we move on to the next piece?
Oh, I agree with what she was saying. It takes a long time, and we're constantly evolving. Absolutely. I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago, 5 years ago, a year ago. And
Yeah.
sometimes I have to sit down and I have to tell myself that and remind myself that I am evolving, even though some days it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah.
But I know that I am. And I kind of like those moments where it makes me check myself, because you get so wrapped up in just life in general, you don't think you're getting anywhere. But if you sit down and look back, man, it's amazing.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, this last one before we close out for the evening, I want to try out a couple different breathing exercises with you. Knowing all the fantastic work that you've done, you very well may have run across these techniques before, but we will share them here tonight. So you have the yoga method of breathing through alternating nostrils. Have you tried this one before, Tanya?
I'm not sure. Remind me.
So you have your thumb. My fingers don't actually go all the way up here. Too many years of doing massage, so we're just going to do the thumb, the pinky finger for me. But technically, you're supposed to have these two fingers up. So you place your thumb against the right nostril, and then you breathe in through the left nostril, and then you will plug the left nostril and breathe out the right. And so that would, and then you plug the right. Okay, so plug the right, deep breath in the left. Plug the left, breathe out the right. And then breathe in the right. Plug, breathe out the left. We'll do this a few more times. Breathe in the left. Plug, breathe out the right. Plug the right. Oh, wait, sorry. Inhale the right. Plug, exhale the left. One more. Inhale the left. Exhale. Inhale. And what was that like?
I've never done that, and I like it. That was refreshing, and it kind of helped relax for sure.
Excellent. So the next one that we're going to try is we're going to breathe in for 4, hold for 7, and exhale for 8. All right, we'll try that one. So breathe in for 4, hold, exhale, inhale, hold, Exhale. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Last one. Hold. And exhale. How is that?
So I've done that one before, and that the hold is the hardest part for me. I can't ever hold for the amount of time supposed to.
Oh,
And it
interesting. What do you feel like what does it bring to you in those moments?
when I'm trying to hold,
Yeah,
anxiety.
I understand.
Like I didn't get enough breath to hold for that long, or I don't know. I just can't hold my breath for that long.
So when you take the inhale, do you do like a really big like, or do you do it like like a slow pull, or what's your inhale like?
It's a slow pull through my nose.
Okay. So if you do a bigger pull,
I don't even know if I'm know how to do a bigger pull.
think about when you're like excited, you're like, so it's
Yeah. Maybe that's what it is. I'm not taking in enough breath to hold, because I can exhale really slowly and it feels awesome.
yeah, there's also the one so you breathe 4 in, hold for 4, bring 4 out.
Yeah, I can do that. That's
So
easy.
yeah, so breathe 4 in, hold for 4, breathe 4 out, hold for another 4, and then bring. Do you do the last one of the hold after the exhale?
Yes.
Okay. So how often do you do your breathing techniques?
Um, I can't really say. I mean, I'm sure I do them several times a week. I mostly do them like when I'm going into meditation. I try to meditate in the morning and in the evening. Sometimes I don't do as long as I want to, but
Yeah.
I will do that breath work to get me into that focused mind. But yeah, that holding, I don't know. I don't know what it is. My mind just does not like the holding.
Interesting.
I like the release. The release feels really, really good.
The holding, like, um, are there other places in life where you struggle to like hold on to something, to hold back? Like that constricting?
No, I think it's more I hold on to things that I shouldn't hold on to.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is. And my psychological learning always is like questioning that and trying to analyze that.
Maybe playing with the breath and doing the slow pull that feels more natural and balanced, and starting if you're supposed to hold for 7, maybe try pull in for 7 and then hold, or um, and then let go, and don't have that like let go of the expectation.
Right.
Be like, I'm just going to play with my body and see what works. And maybe if it's holding for 6 seconds, but doing it a couple times a day, right? And
Yeah.
training muscles around your lungs and training your brain, being like, we're not going to die if we hold on to for that 7th second.
It's a good idea. I think a lot of it is the expectation, but even like I'm not a runner.
Mhm.
I'm a fast walker and I can get my breath going, but if I try to run, I cannot figure out my breath to continue running. I will run out of breath and I have to stop. It's not my body, it's not physical, it's my breath.
Yeah.
So I think it is that just learning how to work that breath. Yeah.
It's an interesting thing, and the anxiety that builds sometimes, and fear. There's a lot of fear that can happen, right? And
Yeah.
that can be the first step in conquering fear, is starting in that physiological aspect of your body.
Absolutely.
Because, even Mother Earth breathes. The contraction expansion of winter, we contract. Summer, she expands, she breathes, and new life comes into the world. And then things wither and they go back in and things hibernate.
Yes.
So finding the beauty and the balance. And that, my friend, is our evening. So thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate you. And I hope you're able to make tomorrow night.
Of course. I appreciate you. This is beautiful and much needed. I hope you can share the recordings and more people can listen, because it's definitely something we can all take from.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, maybe I'll be able to share tonight. So I don't know about the other two, but I feel like tonight is good. So I'll talk to Simran and see what she says.
Perfect. Thank you, Elysia. You have a good evening.
Thank you. You too. I will talk to you later.
Bye.